And we're going to get started right away in the great state of Arizona with our good friend Todd Rathner. Todd, how are you, sir?
Great, Don. How are you?
Oh, we are doing well. Thanks for being with us here. A couple of stories we want to talk to you about in Arizona. Let's start off with this one about lawmakers wanting to let college faculty and students carry guns on campus. Get us up to speed on this one, sir.
Well, as you may know, over the past, I'd say about 3 years, we've been very active in Arizona. We passed constitutional carry. We got the parking lot bill passed. We've done a number of different NRA initiatives here and been very successful. And now it's time to work on one of the last pieces to the picture, to the puzzle, so to speak, which is campus carry. And we've got a number of legislators who are willing to support it. I think that right now our legislature is more pro-gun than it's been in many, many years. Even last year we had a great pro-gun legislature, but I think we're even more pro-gun now because we got rid of some rhinos, some Republicans that were not as pro-gun as we would have liked, and replaced them with some serious conservative, very pro-gun folks. And I think we're going to be able to pass a good campus carry bill. Now, the devil's in the details, and what we're going to have to work out is what exactly is that going to look like. It could be the full spectrum from anybody, any law-abiding citizen being able to carry on campus, to which is essentially and philosophically the way we think it ought to be, or CCW permit holders only, or students and faculty who are CCW and permit holders only, or there's been a proposal that only faculty with CCW permits. I think ultimately, I think we're going to end up somewhere around CCW permit holders only, and I think that would be the best combination right there would be allowing anybody with a CCW permit to carry on a campus. I mean, the campus of U of A, which is about a mile from my own home, is a sprawling, multi-square mile campus that people have to cross frequently to go from one place to another. And if you've got a CCW permit, there should be absolutely no reason why you can't carry there. The devil is going to be in the details, though. We can talk about dorms and classrooms and everything else, and how is that going to work? So,
well, in a time, the funny thing is, you talk about and remembering just a few years ago when I was at college. It was just a couple of years ago, but you're right. You're traveling across. It's nighttime. It's not the best conditions. Not that all college campuses are dangerous, but they're just another part of the world. So when we get on a college campus, everyone thinks in this la happy land idea that they have on college campus, everything is fine. There's no crime. There's no problem. We know that's not true. You just can't suspend all the rules of society for good or ill when you get on a college campus and say, you don't need the right to defend yourself here. Everything will be great. We'll take care of you. So we know that's not the reality of things.
Don't you know, John, a gun-free zone means there's no guns there?
Right. It's totally safe.
It's totally safe.
Yeah. So
well,
go ahead.
This defenseless victim zone is what I like to call it.
Absolutely. So basically, I think, and we've seen this in a number of states, Todd, where there's been a lot of consternation over this. For some reason, with college campuses, we've got, shell issue happening and lots of great things happening for people to exercise their lawful and legal right to carry. But on college campuses, somehow, things seem to get, like, as you said, the devil's in the details. Things seem to get very kind of, very complicated when we get there.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I understand exactly why. I mean, sometimes you can take the other side, their position, and you can sort of wrap yourself around it a little bit and say, okay, I understand the argument of this or that. I mean, if we were talking about, something other than a college campus, which is, in Arizona, the college campuses are small cities. I mean, they're huge, and they take up a huge chunk of real estate. And for them to say, the university presidents and the university police chiefs have come out and said, already, that they're going to oppose this, and we're going to have a fight on our hands. But we're used to having fights. I mean, we're used to having fights, and we're used to winning them. And we fight, and our best battlefield is in the legislature. I would, certainly much rather fight this in the Arizona House and the Arizona Senate than by referendum or something. And I think that we're going to be able to convince enough legislators that we've got to implement some kind of a program somehow. I mean, I don't know why they get squeamish about it. I think that, in at least in Arizona, the colleges they've been accepted in a lot of ways, and I mean as an exception, not accepted. In other words, there are exceptions in all kinds of laws for the universities, and they essentially they just want government money. They don't want government interference in the way that they run the colleges. And so, they're used to getting their way. They're used to being exceptions to the rule in a number of ways. I mean, they make all of their own rules. They have their own police forces on the college. And so they think, that they can do whatever they want to do. And, we're saying, no, you can't. When you're as big a part of the community as, for instance, the University of Arizona is in Tucson, you can't just be excluded from the rest of the world. It's just not possible.
Absolutely.
And, especially when we had a shooting on the University of Arizona campus. It must be 10 years ago now. It was when Charlton Heston was still alive, and he was actually coming to Tucson around the same time. This terrible incident happened at the College of Nursing at the U of A, and there were questions about whether Heston was going to come or not, and of course he did come to Tucson, and I think it was about 10 years ago, and it was a terrible incident. But if one person with a CCW permit was in that room that had a gun that could have defended those people, I think that the incident would have been stopped much sooner. And if the bad guy knew that somebody could have had a gun, it may not have happened at all. And that's the deterrent effect that we all talk about and think about.
Yeah, it would have been a totally different story if that would have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a chance that a person, I think they pick these places, it's not by accident. They don't pick police stations to go shoot up.
Yeah.
They don't walk into shooting ranges and shoot them up. They don't go into a gun store and shoot that up. Why? Because there's people with guns there.
Yeah.
They pick these defenseless victim zones like university campuses, and they shoot those up. And so, it just makes sense. It makes sense to, probably to everybody listening, and it makes sense to the average NRA member. But for some reason, it is difficult. State by state, we're going to have to tackle this, and hopefully Arizona will be able to set the course and help get one of the best campus carry laws in the country.
Absolutely. So, what do you think as far as the chances for this moving forward? As we said, Todd, there's been a lot of kind of back and forth in many different states and efforts, and some have been successful, and unfortunately others have not. What do you think? Prognosticate for us on this.
I will. Former Senator, now Representative Jack Harper, has already introduced a faculty carry bill. He's got a companion student carry bill, which would allow students or faculty to carry with CCW permits. And I think that there's likely to be two more bills introduced to get campus carry, and one of them will probably be anybody with a CCW permit, and one may be faculty and students with a CCW permit. And they might even actually have duplicate bills in each house. So there could be as many as 4 more,
wow,
which would mean 6 bills. And what's happening, we're in a very unique position right now in Arizona. There's not a whole lot left to do in terms of major pieces of legislation. We've got a lot to do in terms of tweaking and tuning preemption and some other laws and some little things that we have to do and cleanups here and there. But we don't have a whole lot more in terms of major pieces of legislation to move. So everybody is scrambling. The conservatives, the pro-gun conservatives, are all scrambling to try to find a good, solid piece of pro-gun legislation to run. And campus carry is basically the biggest marquee issue right now.
Todd, There's people in other states that just wish they had that problem in a lot of other states.
I know. Whenever I talk to my very, very dear friend Scott Bach from New Jersey, he always plays the miniature violin for me whenever I complain about a problem in our legislature.
Poor guy. We're really feeling for you here.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true. I mean, but this has been a conscious effort for the past decade to make sure that every single year we introduce enough pro-gun legislation to make sure that the other side has to play defense and can't play offense. We used to play defense in Arizona.
Yeah.
When before I was on the board, which is 11 years ago or so, I remember us playing defense. We had anti-gun legislation in every session. We fought and fought and fought, and some of us sat down and said, "This, myself, Darren Lasord, Sandy Froman, and others." And back in the day, Randy Kozak, and we said we're not gonna have this anymore in a place like Arizona. We're going to introduce pro-gun legislation, make the other side play defense. Why should we be playing defense?
Absolutely.
Todd, let's move to a different subject here. Today on the Huffington Post, Dennis Hennigan has an article. Dennis Hennigan, of course, from the Brady Center, says Obama and guns, the end of appeasement. First sentence of the article says the Obama administration finally ready to stand up to the gun lobby. And he talks about, you are very fortunate that you live in such a beautiful part of the country, but you're also kind of a number one target right now when it comes to the ATF and border gun shops, and talking about these new requirements that the ATF is proposing for the shops along the border there. What do you see in the new year? It seems like these gun control efforts are going to come back in the new year. The 90% numbers, it keeps bandying about again. You're there in Arizona, and you represent one of these border states. What do you see as coming up in the next year?
Well, I think it's going to be, this initiative by the ATF is going to be a huge problem for a lot of the gun dealers down here. And I think that we all know that any time they place more restrictions on law-abiding folks, whether it be a gun dealer who's law-abiding or a gun owner who's law-abiding, all you do is hinder the law-abiding folks. You don't do anything to stop the people that break the law. I mean, it's absolutely absurd to think that these drug cartels that have millions and millions, maybe even billions of dollars of cash that could buy guns from Hugo Chavez any single day of the week, they can buy from any other of the myriad of unstable South American countries. They can buy guns down there all they want. Why would they come into Arizona to buy guns? I mean, there may be some small percentage of guns that are going to some small operators. There may be some problems with some of the guys that are operating in Phoenix or possibly in Tucson who are buying guns at gun stores, but I don't think there's a lot of it. It's amazing. I met with Agent Newell from the ATF 2 years ago, at least 2 years ago, January, with Jonathan Payton, and we sat down, former state senator Jonathan Payton, and we met with this ATF agent, sat down with him, and he said, Arizona needs to pass a state law against straw purchases. And I said, why? We have a federal law against straw purchases. Why do we need a state law against straw purchases?
Right, yeah.
Well, because we have no resources to enforce it. Oh, so you want another law? Now you want to put the burden on the state. You want to make, they make this argument that, on immigration, that they don't want the state to enforce immigration
I was about to say exactly what I was about to say. You can't do that, but they want you to enforce the gun laws.
Of course, and they want to create a whole new bureaucracy within the Department of Public Safety to enforce a law that's already on the federal books that they don't want to enforce because it's not a high priority, it's not sexy, it doesn't result in tons of guns being laid out on a table for the New York Times to come and photograph. And so they don't want to do it. They want to do other things. And if this whole issue would be solved. Now, years ago, people used to say to me, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm getting a cold. You have to excuse me.
That's all right. John's been sick all week, so that's okay.
I got to say, join the club.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Todd.
People used to say to me, when's the NRA going to get involved in the immigration issue? And I said, well, the immigration issue is not the NRA's issue. The NRA is a single-issue organization. It has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. Well, now, maybe I was wrong at the time. I'm not sure, because now it obviously does have something to do with the Second Amendment. And to the extent that it does affect the rights of law-abiding gun dealers and law-abiding gun owners, the NRA is going to have to be involved. And I know Chris Cox made a very strong statement about this, and he's absolutely right. And he said, we're not going to stand by and let gun dealers be harassed by government agencies, and he's absolutely right. And so I just, for the life of me, I don't understand how they think that this is going to help. I actually really, the cynical side of me knows that they don't think it's going to help. What I think they're going to do is this is going to be an attempt. It's a one-year project where they want to crack down on the sales of, quote, high-powered rifles, which is anything over 22 long rifle. So if you buy more than one 243 rifle in a 5-day period, they want to investigate that purchase, and they're going to do it in 4, 5, 6 border states, whatever they talked about. I don't know exactly what they talked about, which states, but they're going to do California, Arizona, New Mexico, and they're going to do these investigations. And what's going to happen is they're going to say, oh, it's not having an impact. We're going to have to expand it to all 50 states now. And that's what they're going to say. They're going to say that we're going to have to do this in Alaska now, right. Even though it's 5,000 miles from the Mexican border. We have to track every single high-powered rifle purchase. Yep. And that, because the program didn't work, so we have to expand it. That's the only thing that I can think of is what they're trying to do here.
Todd, last question. This story of the Border Patrol agent who lost his life in southern New Mexico, to me, this has been my pet peeve all week, has been very underreported. I really have hardly seen the story anywhere, especially I guess maybe here on the East Coast. You being a border state next door to New Mexico, is it a bigger story there? Do people care? Is anyone talking about this? Because I think the lack of coverage of this story is symptomatic of a bigger issue.
Okay, well, now there was a Border Patrol agent killed in Peck Canyon, Arizona. Is that the one you're talking about?
No,
or is there another one in New Mexico?
There was another one in southern New Mexico last week.
Yeah, you see, it's underreported because I didn't even hear about it, and I read all the local and national papers as much as I can every day online.
I mean, didn't I just prove my point? I mean, how terrible is that? I mean, especially Todd, as interested in, I know you are as interested in this as we are, maybe even more so, and you didn't even hear about this.
No, and I try to pay attention to everything that's going on with the Border Patrol now because of what's going on. I mean, heck, I'm only about 50 miles from the border where I live, where my home is, and I'm bringing up 2 kids in this town, and of course I want to pay attention to what's going on. And but that is amazing that I knew certainly about the agent that was killed here in Peck Canyon, which is a place that I could probably name 20 people that I know that have hunted Peck Canyon in the past few years. I mean, it's this is what's going on. We see this all the time. We've been seeing it for years. A good friend of mine who I hunt with, John Tate and I, we used to hunt right down on the border in the town of Sassabee. And there were a number of places where we used to go, and we had a tradition of going down there on Christmas Day whenever we could, if we could get away, and we'd go down there and hunt because there were less people out there. And about 3 Christmases ago, John couldn't go, and I went by myself. And I can't even tell you the number of people that were crossing the border in absolute raw desert, and the mess that they leave is just absolutely unbelievable. It's destroying deer habitat, it's destroying quail habitat, and it's just destroying the picturesque nature of the state of Arizona. They're destroying the whole southern part of the state, arguably all the way up to Interstate 8, which is where the Sheriff Babbo that you see on the news all the time, Pinal County, where he is. I mean, they're destroying the whole southern part of the state.
Just a quick aside before we go to break. I think one of my favorite shows on TV right now is on the National Geographic Channel. It's called Border Wars, and it is an in-depth, embedded view of the Border Patrol. And it's amazing because you have the open borders crowd and a lot of these pro-immigration people who think that the Border Patrol agents are are awful people, and they just, all they want to do is find people and send them back to their countries. But the empathy that these agents show, and the gallons of water that they bring, and the medical, I mean, most of you see this show, and a lot of their job is search and rescue, because a lot of these the smugglers just decide they got their shipment of people into the country, they let them go. And I've never been in the deserts of Arizona, but I can't imagine walking through the deserts of Arizona by myself for a week. And these agents are there to help, and they just, the last thing they want to do is these people to lose their lives over it. So it's just amazing that the demonization that these agents get, when really, number one, they're doing their job, and number two, they're trying to save lives.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that you find people out there. I've found people out there with children and young people and old people and trying to get through that desert, just trying to find a real road, and they're walking through the raw desert. And this is a serious desert down here, and where we've given them water, because you don't want to let somebody die out there. I mean, that's and. I mean, I've even had them where I'm deer hunting up on a mountain, and they come walking up to you, and they ask if you've got a cell phone so they can call somebody to pick them up. Oh. I mean, it's unbelievable. And they've got to close the border. They've got to police the border. And the gun dealers, in the border states have nothing to do with the war that's going on 50 miles south of the city of Tucson, Arizona. The gun dealers in the United States have nothing to do with it. And, to put more restrictions on our gun dealers is absolutely absurd.
Yeah, I was going to say, and the illegal gun dealers and the legal lawful gun owners are getting swept up into this as well. Todd, thank you very much for taking your very generous time here to speak with us tonight. You have a wonderful Christmas, a great holiday season, and we will talk to you soon, sir.